Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another SQL discussion. So, in our previous video, we talked about connecting Jupyter Notebook to your Postgres database and being able to use your query language, your SQL, on the Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so we can use it in the environment of Jupyter Notebook. Yes, so this is a little recap. So, we talked about the magic commands, and we said we have line magics and cell magics, and we explained the differences. Then we had to install these packages. Now, you do not need to always install the packages or go through some of these processes, especially the installation. When you have installed, it is fully installed on your system. Okay, it's in the system already, so you could just go ahead and start from activating the environment with this code. So I will experiment that here. So I will just click on new notebook and yes, open this. All right. So the first thing I would do is I want to go back to so you don't need to memorize the code, okay? Just have it handy somewhere. So I would copy this and come here to paste it. Let me zoom this to make it there. Okay, so I guess this should be okay. Yeah, so now when I have copied this, this is the load extension. This is the extension to kind of activate the environments that you could run your magic commands for SQL successfully. All right, so I would run this, and as usual, if it is correct, you're not expecting an output. If I run it again with Shift Enter, it's going to show me the extension is already loaded. Okay, so that means we don't need to load it again. So the next thing after activating the environment is just your Postgres connection. Okay, so which is this? So I would copy this and come back here and paste it. Then I have Shift Enter to run. So it gives me it gives me that connection. So it has successfully connected as long as it did not bring out an error output. So that means it is connected. Okay, so to confirm that, I would like to check one of my tables in the database. Okay, so remember I said I would prefer using the double, or let's say the cell magic, in place of the line magic command. Okay, because of its capacity of putting the magic in the entirety of the cell. All right, so I want to select all from employee table and shift enter. It shows me the record, so it's working properly. Now that means I have four records here, isn't it? I have Maxwell, Tunde, Israel, Sheun, and the rest. Okay, so now let me insert a record. Let me add some cells. Okay, so let me insert a record here. So I will do insert into the employee table, and I would have to call out the column names. Okay, I have to call out the column names. Um, and, middle name, name, last name, last name, employee, age, location, location. Okay, so let me just press enter to the next line. And let's not forget to always start with our magic. Okay, let me erase this. Let's not forget to start with a magic code. Okay, the magic command. So where were we? We were doing this, and we want to. So I want to. Okay, insert into this. Okay, yes. So I put values, and now what I want to do, I want to repeat a particular value here. So let's do max. Well. And Sunday, Israel. Age is 23. Location, Nigeria. So I would shift enter to run, and it says one rows affected. So it was successful. To confirm that, let me check the table, and I would do select all from employee, and that is that. So we now have 5 rows here. Initially there were 4 rows. We've added one record to the table, and now we have 5 rows. So this is it. So we can see that Maxwell to the Israel 23 Nigeria is the same here. Maxwell to the Israel 23 Nigeria, which it's not something that should be accepted in most databases. It shouldn't happen. Okay, so we shouldn't really be so flexible in allowing duplicate records to come on our table. Now there is a possibility that Maxwell Tunde Israel, with this age and with this location, is a different person from Maxwell Tunde Israel with this age and this location. So, but how can you differentiate that? Okay, so to be able to really show that this person is different from this other person, or to detect if this person is the same with this person, or if this is a duplicate or these are unique personalities, then you need to introduce a concept called the primary key. Okay, so we need to introduce a concept called the primary key. Now, what is the primary key? We need to understand what primary key is. So primary key is simply a column. Primary key is a column that uniquely identifies the records. Okay, it usually that identifies the records or rows in a table. Okay, so it uniquely identifies the records or the rows on the table. Okay, so first of all, it is a column, so we have to create a column that has the constraints. We say it is a constraint. Okay, so we have to create a column. We have to create a column that has specific constraints. Okay, that has constraints. All right, so now we are more like being rigid with the rules. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We could start by, let's create a table. All right, let's create a table. So I would want to do that. I have to create a table because it's you can only define the primary key in the definition of the table during creation. So I'm creating a table, create table, and let's say we want to still create this employee table, right? And we have, what do we have here? We have first name. We have first name, and the first name is a voucher of, let's say, 20. Yeah, then we have the middle name, and the middle name is also a varying character, 20. So then we have the last name, which is also voucher 20, and we have employee age and location. So we have the employee age, and this is meant to be an integer. Then we have the location, and this is a voucher. Okay, so let me do this and do this. So I would introduce another column. Let me make that the first column. So I would call that say employee ID. Let me just do emp ID. Okay. Now it's going to be an integer. All right, it's mostly recommended to be an integer. All right, so it's going to be an integer. Now let me copy this, but before I do that, since I'm creating another table that has employee, so I would have to drop the first one because we already have a table that has employee. So the query for that is drop table employee. All right, so as simple as that. So I would do this. I would copy this, come here, paste it. Remember your magic command. Okay, so this SQL and I paste. That is done. All right. Now, if I want to check, if I want to check for that table, let's say I want to check if that table still exists in my database. Okay, so I could just try it out and say select all from employee, and you should get an error. Definitely, because this table no longer exists. So you would definitely have an error. Okay. So because we have already dropped the table, so it's more like saying you've deleted that table. Now, let me copy the create table definition here. So I have to start with SQL, then paste this and shift enter to run it, and it says done. Okay. So if I do SQL and I say something like say select all from employee, I should see only the titles because I don't have any records in it yet. Okay, so I would see just the column names. All right, so you can see the employee ID as the first here and other details here. Okay, so now I want to insert a record into this table. So I would say insert into table. Please do not forget your magic code. So I would use insert. I have something, an insert statement somewhere, right? Okay, so let me just copy that. Let me just copy this and come down here. Then what I would do is the first name, I meant to put the employee ID. So I would do something like say one. Okay, so this is a better way. All right, so if I do shift enter and it tells me that there is an error, that's oh okay, because the name I had made an error in the name, so shift enter, so it has got okay. So now let me also check the table, say select all from employee. Now it shows me one record. The name is one, Maxwell Tunde Israel 23 Nigeria. Now if I repeat this information, if I repeat this information, and first of all, let me show you that if now to know that this is a different Maxwell, if I use a different um, employee ID and I do shift enter, what is it telling me? Invalid syntax. Okay, yes. That's because I didn't put the magic command. Please do not forget that. Okay, so shift enter and it tells me one row affected. Now let's go and reload this. Let me just come here and reload this since I have the command here already. So let me reload this. It shows me Maxwell to the Israel one, Maxwell to the Israel, and this is true. So this makes me understand that this person, despite the fact that the names are the same, the age and the location, so they are both the same doesn't mean it's the same person because their identification, their IDs are different. However, is it possible to run this and have let's run this code again and see if it will go. So if I do this, it tells me yes, it has entered. Okay, so now let me Let me repeat this now. So it shows me two persons. Now with this ID especially, I can know that these two records are duplicates, but this one is not the same person with this other person. Okay, but the second record and the third record are duplicates. Okay, so how can we prevent this to know that this person is uniquely this person? Okay, so now we let's introduce the primary key in its full state. So this is not yet a primary key, this is just the usual column. Okay, so let's see how we can introduce the primary key. So to do that, I'll have to drop the table again, so I could create that. So I would do drop table employee. Okay, so that's done. All right. So now let us see how to include the primary key. So it's a very simple thing. All right. So now to include the primary key, I will just come back to this definition, and here I would just put in front of it primary key. Simple as that. Now let me copy this and come here and just let me do this and shift enter to run. It tells me done. Okay, so that means it has introduced, we've introduced the primary key. Okay, so let's insert this record. Let's insert this record. Okay, and magic. Okay, this record, this is one, and run. Let's see what we have here. Let's check out the table, select all from employee. And we have this as expected. Now, let us make, let's, let's take this and include a second record of the same names. And has gone through. So if I go back here and rerun this, I should see one, two, the same record. So remember, as long as the IDs are different, it's it's not the same record. It's not the same entity. Okay. So now let's also try putting a one, or let's just try using a one which already exists in the table, and we do this. It gives us duplicate key violates unique constraint. Okay, so that means that it has realized that I have already declared this to be a primary key column. Okay, so when I bring another column value that has the same elements that already exist on the table, it realizes that this is going to be a duplicate entry, so you are not accepted. Okay, so this is very necessary. More like when you come into a company, you probably have your employee ID. Your employee ID is very unique, it's different from every other person. So you could meet your namesake with the same information, but your employee ID can never be the same. So how can we differentiate you with the other person? Through the employee ID. So we are now making it strict that whenever you see another employee ID that is similar with what already exists in the records, then don't accept it there, because it is going to be referred to as a duplicate key. So that's what this is all about. That's what the primary key is meant for. Now, your primary key could also be done on multiple columns. Okay, so when we have so I could another way. Let's start with this. Another way to declare a primary key could is to put it somewhere here down, and I could say primary key. Then I put in brackets the column name, which is employee ID. All right. So that's another way to declare it. It's going to give you the same function. Okay. So let me drop this table And let's see that in action. So I drop the table and let me just copy this information and let me put it down here. Okay. So if I insert, let me just insert another, let me insert this. Remember, this is a new table, so the record is going to work. And we do this. So we can see that it has gone through. Okay, so if I select, sorry about that. So if I select, if I select this and I do select all from employee, I should have just this information. So let's see. What we just want to see is the positioning we did for the definition of our table. Will it also work here? Yes, it will work. It will still tell us that this cannot work because there's a restraint, there's a constraint. Okay, so the we have two ways of declaring the primary key. We could write it here or we could use here. Okay, so let me just let me keep the two values together and make them different so that so let me leave this and let me create let me do this here and bring this out. Yes, so we have to put a comma here. Yeah, imp ID. So you would see that there are different definitions but have the same functions. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we also said that you could use a combination of two columns, all right? So there could be some cases whereby it's possible for for one column may not be enough to declare a uniqueness of a particular record. So you might combine more than one column, two, three columns. It depends. For example, I want to do something like this. I want to say, so if I want to add, so I would say employee ID, or let's say we have, let's say I want to use my primary key for the first name and the last name. Okay, so I would do this, but I would have to let me I will have to drop this table. Okay, let me use this in a different table definition, right? So let me do it here. So I will change this to the first name and the last name. All right. So to do this, let me just drop this table. So I would do this. So drop employee table employee. All right. So let me still use this to paste that. All right. So now what I'm saying here is I'm creating a primary key through the combination of two columns, the first and the last name. What this means is that it's if it will check, it will check through the it will check through the table and it will focus if there is a first name and a different last name, then it won't throw an error. But if the first name and the last name is the same with another person, then it will believe that that is a duplicate. So that's what I'm saying. So this is not like a realistic thing in real cases. There are other realistic situations that would require the combination of two columns. So this is usually called like composite key. Okay, so it's usually called composite key. All right, so it's composite. Okay, so it's more like the primary key and composite key. Okay, so now since we have already created this table, let's just put it into practice. Let's test it, and so we have this, and let's see what we have. Okay, so if we do this SQL, and we check the select statement, select all from employee. We should see the information, right? So now let's do this now. Even though we are going to have a different, even though we are going to have a different ID. Remember, we didn't put anything on the ID, so the ID is just like the usual column. But let's imagine that we have, okay, let's just put something different. Okay, let's do something like this. It should, okay, so it says what did it say? Duplicate values. Um First name. Okay. You know what? I changed the middle name, and that's why. So it has detected because Maxwell Israel. So if this is, I was trying to change this, so this should not, this should go okay. So it shouldn't give you an error. So now when I do, let me just rerun this cell, and I'm seeing this. Okay, so let us repeat this, and let's imagine that the middle name here is still Tunde, but or let's just use a different middle name, Ray. And so we have Maxwell Neji, which we have already put something like that in terms of the first name and the last name. You realize that if I run this, it's going to give you an error because we have declared that the primary key should be a combination of the first name and the last name, meaning that the constraints we have placed is that if there is any record that comes in with the same value for the first name and the last name, then it should check it. It should take that as a duplicate and reject it. So we have discussed the primary keys, the creation of different tables with the constraints. Okay, so the next lecture we will talk more about how to manipulate the primary keys. Okay, thank you very much.